All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us this afternoon. My name is Jessie Hill. I'm a benefit officer with the Teachers Retirement System. And like Lexi has said, this will be our first employer geared presentation about the retirement application packet. We have actually done a much similar webinar in the past a couple times, but it was geared more towards the members rather than the employers. We figured it would be helpful since we have a new form that the employer has been completing this year to kind of have one catered just to you guys. So we make sure that you have all the info you need to fill out your sections complete as well. I am going to go through the entire retirement packet in this presentation, but we will highlight which ones are the employer's forms as well in this section. But I will start off with going through the forms that are the ones that the members are responsible for, because I know oftentimes they come out and reach out to you guys for assistance with some of those things. And so you can kind of see from our perspective what we're after on each of those. So yeah, we are going to talk briefly about termination pay, but I will say that we are not going to go through the process of how we actually do termination pay on this. We actually have a flow chart that Lexi's going to put into the chat box of this Zoom meeting that is really helpful if you are not sure the process you would go through as the employer to make sure you're reporting and treating the forms correctly when it comes down to the end of the year, whenever someone is being paid out termination pay and they're retiring. So do follow that link in the chat if you have questions about the process itself. This is just going to be geared towards how to fill out the forms when we come down to it. And so, yeah, we are going to highlight in this presentation, like I said, the actual employer forms in the materials, but it's going to be a full presentation of the entire packet itself as well. Just letting you know, there are 4 forms that would be potentially completed, 3 for sure, 1 maybe not, depending on their situation with their health insurance. But these ones do have sections for you as the employer to be completing to make sure that we have all the data we need to get them processed and ready for their benefit. Starting with the first form, which is Form 108, the application for retirement allowance. So each page, I'm going to basically go through it, listing what the member needs to be providing on each of these. On this first page of Form 108, which is the main form of the retirement packet itself, they're only completing Section 1 with their personal information at the top. They do have this handy checklist in Section 2 that basically is just for their own purpose, so they know what pieces and parts are needed to complete their actual packet. And here you'll see that they have a list on the top here of about, let's see, 7 different items that are needed back. Some of them are the forms within this packet, but you will see there are some standalone items they are required to provide as well, such as a photocopy of their birth certificate or passport. And depending on what allowance option they're picking, we may also require one of their joint annuitant or beneficiary if they're going with allowance A, B, or C. And then they also are required to provide us a copy of their letter of resignation. And then on the bottom, you'll see the 4 different forms that would be employer-related items. And so those 4 forms, 150, 144, 113, and 117, are the 4 different forms that involve you as the employer. The second page of Form 108 has listing out their purchase or forfeiture of service. This may or may not apply to the member if it basically is asking them if they have been quoted a cost to purchasing service. And so they're just checking the box over here saying either no, they have not, or yes, they have. And they're letting us know with an initial whether they're intending to purchase that service or they're not. They are required to fully purchase it prior to starting the retirement benefit. And some do wait until the last minute to do so. But either way, we need to confirm whether or not we need to include extra service in the calculation of their benefit if they are going to. Section 4, mid-year retirement, is only applicable to members that are going to be leaving and having their last day of work prior to 30 days of the last day of school. And in those situations, we do require that if it's a full-time employee, that we have the number of days worked. If they're hourly, we need their hourly rate of pay. If they're a sub, we need the daily rate. And that's to assist us to anticipate their amount of service in their final year, since it's not going to be a full year. And then in section 5 is their termination pay option. It asks them, are you going to be receiving termination pay? So they're checking yes or no in here and providing in number 1 an estimated termination pay amount. And that may involve you guys as well. You guys are the first contact of them to get that estimate, as you're the ones that do the calculation to determine what that's supposed to be. So that may be something that you may be asked to assist with when they get to this section on the form that they are completing. And then it's going to ask them if they have submitted Form 129. That's that termination pay irrevocable election form I'm sure you all are familiar with. That has to be done greater than 90 days prior to their last day of work so we can invest the termination pay with pre-tax dollars, basically, is what it ensures. And so if they have submitted that form, they're just checking the box yes. If they have not, they can check no and still include it. They can invest it, but it would be with after-tax dollars instead. And that scenario is when you pay it out to them directly with all the applicable taxes you normally take out, and they turn around and write us a check for the full amount to be invested. So on these next pages here, and it is page 3 and 4 and 5, are all indicating what allowance option the member is going to be picking. Now, this is something that they would be looking at their estimate sitting next to them while they're filling out this packet. And that's what's going to show them what the dollar amounts are for each allowance option that they have available to them. It is important for them to be listing the proper beneficiary on their estimate so they can, because that can change not who, excuse me, but the amounts listed on their estimate. Say if they have a spouse listed, it may have different options available and different amounts for these A, B, and C allowance options versus if they had a child, some of those options may not even be available to them. So it's important if you're assisting or looking at their estimate with them that they have that correct beneficiary they're using listed. If they don't, send them our way. We can make a new estimate out for whomever they're wanting to list so they have accurate info they're making that decision based off of. When they are determining which allowance option they're picking, they really should be involving their family and anyone else that might be involved personally with them or a financial advisor. Our job at TRS as a benefit officer, me, Johnelle, and Sherry, our job is not to advise. We simply are laying out their allowance options and all their options really on their retirement plan, and it ultimately is up to them to determine what befits their situation and which one they're going to go with. It is also your role to do the same thing. And in that, I want to just stress that as the employer, you should not be advising them which allowance they should be picking at all. That's definitely something that is done either with their personal folks in their life or with a financial advisor that they might have hired or be talking to. So just make sure that you're not overstepping that boundary and telling them, oh, you should go with this one, you should go with that one, as that's probably not appropriate to do. Know that whichever allowance option that they're picking is set and irrevocable after they receive their first retirement benefit. And that's payable the last business day of the month after their last day of work in general. And so when they're deciding which allowance option they're wanting, they would be either checking the box next, or they would be checking the box next to that option and printing and signing their name. They would only be selecting one of these. So on this page I'm at right now, they would be checking one of these boxes if they're going for one of our joint and survivor annuity options. And then at the bottom of that page is where they're going to provide their joint annuitants detailed information. If they are not going with A, B, or C, they would completely leave that page blank, and we would move on to this next page, which has the 10-year certain and the 20-year certain, as well as the normal form retirement benefit options, and they would be picking one of those instead. If they are picking one of these ones, it's the same. You're just checking the box, printing your name and signing. But on this option, you flip to the next page. For Section 7, they are required to list at least one primary beneficiary if they are going with either the 10 or 20-year certain in life or normal form allowance. And so, similarly to you would skip this page up here if they were going with any of the other options. If they are going with A, B, or C, they're not going to also put beneficiary info in this other page. That's only if they're going with a period certain in life or the normal form allowance where they would be populating beneficiary info here. Moving on to the final page of Form 108, this is the verification and signature page. They are required to print their name at the top, certifying that they have read and they understand all the information and everything provided to us is accurate. They have to populate in number 3 their last day of termination, and that generally is going to be the last day of school. We sometimes will get this being their last date of contract, usually June 30th is not usually correct for a teacher position. We see that with administrators, but in general, it's usually the last day of school unless they have duties that carry on and get paid beyond that date. And then number five, they're certifying their marital status. Either A, they're not married due to one of these reasons specified, and they have to provide the name of their ex-spouse, or if they have passed away, their deceased spouse, and then the date of either or under that. Or they check the box saying they are currently married. And that's important because right below that, we have the member's notarized signature required. And then below that would be their spouse's signature. So if they are married, their spouse always is needing to be signing in front of a notary, verifying as well. So the next form I have is our W-4Ps. So this is our federal tax withholding form. One thing that we like to stress with this, and we get questions about it all the time, is we can't give any kind of tax advice when it comes to this form for the federal, as well as the Montana state withholding form, which is the next form on this list here I'm going through. We can simply refer them to a tax advisor or an accountant to make that to give them that level of advice. But how they fill this form out is going to determine to us or tell us how much tax withholding they wish to have on the federal side of things. At minimum, we do need to have step one completed with their personal information and checking the box of the filing status, and then have them all the way at the bottom sign and date. If they want to fill in any information in steps 2, 3, and 4, or there is a deductions work page on the very back page of this form, that's where it comes into play with the tax advisor and what might be in their best situation to do. So we urge you guys, if they have questions about these forms with you, do the same. Definitely refer them to a tax advisor that would be able to look at their entire financial situation and give them better advice than we or you could. So this form is a good few pages long. It is an IRS form, as you can tell. It's kind of wordy. So the second page is it's basically just information, as well as this third page. And then this final page is a long deductions worksheet, which is totally none of those pages are required. Simply the first page is required to be completed for our purposes. Ultimately, the member is responsible for their own tax liability as well. So that's why it's really important to be referring them over to tax advisors or accountants to get the most accurate information. The next form here is your Montana State Withholding Certificate. This did go through some changes in the last couple years. We used to do it similarly to the feds, where we would have them list their filing status and number of allowances they want to claim. But the Department of Revenue recently changed some of their rules when it surrounds this type of benefit, where now they actually have to provide us a flat dollar amount that they wish to have withheld from each monthly benefit. And you can see that on the bottom box right here. They are either checking that they don't want to have state taxes withheld, or they check the second one saying they do. And then there's a box here saying, how much should we withhold on your behalf? And I often get a lot of questions on this. How much should I put in there? Again, that is in the realm of referring them to a tax advisor or accountant that can assist them with that. We can't provide any kind of tax advice as well as you guys. And then signing and dating the bottom. Pretty simple form on that one. And then this back side of the page is simply just questions. And kind of basically what I went over is, definitely talk to a tax advisor is the main piece of advice there. So this next form in the packet is their application for electronic deposit. The intention of this form is letting us know what bank account they wish to have this automatically deposited into. They do have the option of getting a paper check instead. In those situations, we just ask them to write on the top of this form, requesting a paper check, and having them sign on the back so we know that is actually them requesting it. But almost everyone is going to go for the electronic deposit. And so how they're filling this out will just let us know that information. It's pretty straightforward on what they put in here. Personal information at the top, their financial institutions information at the body right here. They are going to indicate whether it's a checking or savings account. If it is a checking account, we do require that they attach a voided check on the bottom. If it is a savings account, we don't need any kind of deposit slip or anything attached. We simply ask for the routing number and account number. And if this is a joint account, they have to indicate that with the number 2 question, either checking yes or no. And then on the back, if it is a joint account, we do require the joint account owner's information in that box as well. And then they are done, except all they have to do is sign and date on the very bottom of the form here. All right, so now we're actually getting into the four forms that involve you guys as the employers. And the first form in this section is Form 150, which is our newest form this year. I'm going to switch it over to Janelle, our Active Team Supervisor, to cover this one, and then I'll come back after that.
Good afternoon. This is Johnelle Sedlock. Like Jessie said, thank you, Jessie. I'm the active team supervisor. I've been with TRS for almost 24 years. So I've done this process a lot throughout the years. And I just kind of wanted to explain why we did this Form 150. We have auditors, the state, Montana state auditors. They come in and audit our retirement system, and we have to reconcile to how we're calculating somebody's benefit to what was reported to TRS by you as the employer. And so in the past, we've had to send follow up quite a bit with with you as the employer, because we didn't really have a form. We were just saying, please include the contracts, any extra duties, contracts, or payroll records, so we can reconcile to what was reported by you guys on your report. And so we decided and what we were doing is sending a ton of emails out to you as the clerk saying, okay, this was reported, this is what I have, this is how much difference it is. Can you tell us what it is? And so we thought by developing this form that we wouldn't have to email you clerks so much on follow-up. We were trying to hopefully make life easier for you guys by having this form and providing it up front to us, and so we wouldn't be bothering you towards the end with emails. And so I know we've gotten a lot of comments on this form, but I just wanted to give you the background of that's why we did this. We were hoping that would make all of our lives easier, to have a form and to kind of spell out what we need. Because once again, I meet with the auditors as a supervisor, and we have to reconcile to the penny on what was reported to TRS. So that's why we ask for this. We're hoping that we're not trying to make your life any harder or give you more work. It's just that, we have to have this information to do our job. And we just thought it might be a little bit easier on this form. And so, of course, hopefully the member is filling out the member information, and then you're going to fill out the employer information. And in the instructions, it does say that we require a copy of all the contracts for the last 4 years and last 6 years, if the member began after July 1st. And I want to mention something with this. We're getting some forms in, and we are getting this form completed through fiscal year 25, but not including fiscal year 26, because of course fiscal year 26 is not completed yet. But we still need you to start off with this form on the first fiscal year. Put the current fiscal year. So you could put, and I'm going to change this form next year and kind of reword this. But when you're filling out the form, it's going to be your current fiscal year first. So you would put 2026, and then total wages reported, put anticipated wages. We know that, right now we probably only have wages through maybe January. And maybe some February, probably not quite yet, but March is getting closer, so maybe. We just want you to provide us anticipated wages. And so, of course, put the base contract amount, or if they're hourly rate, and any compensation. We like a breakdown. And can I have you? Yeah, and I'll show you an example, and then I'll come back. So this is an example that I got from an employer. And so as you can see, they provided the base contract amounts, and the copies of them, but a split out, they had extra time. And so we need this split out. So as you can see in this example, they just had extra time, probably prep time or some kind of extra time, but then they had some sub-teaching hours. So this is what I need broken out because sometimes we find that things are reported to us that should not be. And so that's why we need a breakdown of all the wages earned and what they were to make sure they were reported correctly to TRS. Okay. So you don't have this just happens to be in a spreadsheet that we got. And I just kind of wanted to show an example of this is truly what we need. Now, payroll records work for us as long as it breaks it out. I just loaded an app today where the payroll records listed tutoring, subbing, coaching. So, I mean, if your payroll records list that out, that's awesome. But if it's easier for you to do a spreadsheet, that's perfect for us too. We just need to make sure that we're getting a breakdown of these wages by fiscal year. And you can see in this example, this employer color coded it for me for 23, 24, 25, and then provided the 26 on the form on 150. And so this is kind of one, I know this has been a heartache for a lot of us. Like once again, we are not trying to make more work for you. We just have to reconcile to what you guys reported and make sure it's reported to the right retirement system also. So, you want to list the last 4 years and like once again include your current fiscal year on that. And then just make sure that you're attaching any of that documentation to the back of the form. And when we did our member retirement application packet webinar, we are stressing to our members that they give this form to you, you complete it, and they get it all back and send it to TRS. Okay. I don't want it to have to be where you guys are sending this in. Truly, if you read the instructions on the first page of the app, it is absolutely the member's responsibility to make sure all these forms are completed and to TRS. So we are stressing that to our members that, excuse me, to get this form from you guys, make sure everything is attached, make sure that the current fiscal year is on there and before they send it to TRS. So hopefully that answers by going through this Form 150, it hopefully answers your questions on why we did this. And hopefully, I have some stuff I'm going to tweak on this for next year. So we're just trying to make it as easy and understanding as we can on this and not put more work on you guys once again. We just have to have this, and we're just trying to make this a smooth process and make it as easy as possible. And you're not getting 10 emails from 5 different people, my active staff. So that's kind of the background on this. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Jessie. There is a second page on Form 150 that you guys have to sign. We are asking for the original be sent back, but we will accept a copy. But I'm going to turn this back over to Jessie, and she's going to finish the webinar. Thank you again, you guys.
Thanks, Janelle. So yeah, I'll just kind of carry on here, going over the rest of the employer-related forms in the members packet. The next to this is Form 144, Member and Employer Certification of Termination of Employment. You can see on here, pretty easy to fill in the first page on this with member information and then employer information. Oftentimes we'll have you guys probably complete this section on here because the members don't really have that TRS employer number, although you should. So this is kind of it's not a trifold, but it's a folded form that they open up. And on the inside, so it's a total of 4 pages, but on the inside, There's a lot of information about what constitutes termination of employment, how does a member obtain retired. So it's a lot of reading, basically, for them about the break in service after they are done. But there are a couple pieces they have to sign or fill out on the third page on the inside of the form. Number two, they have to provide their date of termination. And then in number three, they have to check either that they do or do not have a prearranged agreement to provide services in your employment with your as you as the employer specifically. And then on the very bottom, they're checking either the top box saying that you guys are their only employer, TRS reportable employer for the last 12 months, or they check the bottom one saying that you are one of so many employers that they have, because this form is required to be completed by all employers if they have multiple ones. And so whenever we see that, we send out retirement packets to them. We try to enclose additional forms 144, and all the employer forms need to be duplicated for each employer. They are required to have a notary signature completed on this one. This isn't a new form. I'm sure all of you have probably seen this by now and have completed a few yourself. But yes, we still do need a notary signature from them at the top. Your section of this form is under the employer certification, and where you are verifying in number two their date of termination. And then also verifying whether or not in number three they have a prearranged agreement or they do not. And then signing and dating and giving your title under number four as well. This is another one that we would like to have you give back to the member along with the information in 150, because this is required to be returned to us to process the request. And again, even though you have a section on here, like Johnelle talked about with the other form, ultimately it's the member's responsibility to make sure their entire packet contents come back to us in full. And then we have Form 113, which is the retirement termination pay form. This one's handled a little bit differently. You guys are going to actually hang on to this one until a week before you submit your final report for the year, and then you would submit it back to us yourselves. This one, once it's passed off to you from the member, is not provided back to them to provide to us, because they will be getting all their packet back into us hopefully well before you are submitting your final payroll. So what the member is responsible for on this form is section one, providing their detailed information. And then they're indicating either with box A or box B if they have a termination pay irrevocable form on file and what their election is going to be. So if they have completed Form 129, they're indicating either option one or option two in signing and dating. If they have not submitted Form 129, they're letting us know if they are going to elect option one, two, or they're just getting a payout with option three, which is the one where you guys would pay out to them directly and they're not choosing to put anything into TRS. And then they would sign and date the bottom on that if that's their scenario. That's the extent of what the member has to do with this form. So you guys are going to, again, hang on to this until a week before you submit your final report. And then you would complete this back section with the final contract amount, other compensation, and then also what the final total termination pay is right here. And then you're going to indicate the member elected termination pay option one or two, and then contributions will be due to TRS in that scenario. Or did they choose option three, which is a payout only, and no contributions are due on termination pay from you guys? In addition to this, you are going to be required to complete a termination pay calculator that's available on your reporting system on the TRS system there. And I'm sure most of all of you have completed one of those termination pay calculators up to this point with your retirees. But if you haven't, I will refer you back to that flow chart that Lexi put into the chat function on your Zoom call here. And that would be giving you instructions on how to complete that. And if you need help, you can always reach out to us at TRS too. If you are not quite sure how to do that, we'd much rather have you doing it right the first time rather than sending it in and then having to contact you if there are things missing on that. So at the end of this, you would complete this information on this back side and attach a printed off copy of that termination pay calculator when you complete it and get it back to TRS. Now, the final form that may or may not even be applicable. It doesn't often happen that this form is used, but it is the authorization for deduction of health insurance premiums. So this is a relevant form if the member is choosing to A, stay on their employer's health insurance plan, and B, they wish to have the premiums withheld from their monthly benefit payment. This is simply a convenience to them. This does not provide them any kind of financial benefit because it is going to be withheld by you guys if you set it up after taxes are withheld from it. So it's not saving them and not coming out like it does probably now from their pay tax deferred. So this is simply a convenience function for them because you guys and us have a go-between system that can set up things such as this. They would be completing section 1, and then you would be completing section 2, indicating the insurance information that would be needed to set that up. And yet, most cases, I would say, don't have this implemented. I would say it's more rare to see this come through because they have to have those two scenarios where they're staying on the plan and they want us to have that pay come out of their retirement in retirement and go directly to you guys. But if it is, this would be the fourth final form that has part of your stuff that would need to be completed as well. If they are not in that scenario where they're filling this out, we don't even need to see this form back. Or it can come back and just be blank. We will assume that it's not applicable to their situation. So that basically is the extent of the retirement packet and going through that. And I'm hoping that really helped you guys with the detail about especially the employer section on the forms that we have. I do have our contact information here on the final part of this PDF here. The main contact, Kathy Leonard, is a benefit specialist that she's also the primary one to assist you with termination pay when it comes down to it. And then, but we've also got Johnelle, myself, Sherry, and Jax listed as benefit officers or specialists as well that can be assisting you with what you might need. And so with that, I think I will go ahead and turn it over if we have any QAs. Okay, Janelle's going to take over and do some of the QAs for us. And thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Jesse. One quick thing on that Form 117, the insurance form. Any questions that members have regarding insurance being withheld, they are not directed to TRS, since it's just strictly convenience purposes. Any questions regarding, do they qualify? Are they eligible? We're just kind of the middleman in that insurance process thing. And so just a reminder, if the members have any questions regarding that, they need to contact either you as the clerk, or if you have an insurance person that can answer those questions. But yeah, we're just the middleman, and you as the employer need to answer any questions.